Now we are going to discuss one important topic, facility or difficulty index and discrimination index. Sometimes you can find questions based on this subtopic in the first paper, 3 or 4 questions. If not, you can find questions in the second paper also, right? In the part 3, there are 3 stat questions now. One is correlation, one is normal distribution, and the third one is always not optional, changing, right? Sometimes in some years they ask you to draw an ague and do the calculations. Sometimes they ask the p-values, p's and prs, percentage ranks, that section. Sometimes they include questions based on this topic, facility index and discrimination index. Anyway, you find questions either in the first paper or in the second paper, right, based on this section. Now we'll go through this. Facility. Facility means easy, remember, easy. Facility, if something is easy, it's not difficult, right? Either facility or difficulty, that's why it's within brackets. Facility or difficulty index and discrimination index. Now we'll go through the note. By giving a test, it is possible, 1, to find out the extent of students' achievement of subject matter. Right? When we give a test, we can find out how much the students have understood the lesson. That's why to find out the extent of students' achievement of the subject matter. Number 2, another advantage of giving a test, to identify capable and incapable students. Who are the clever ones? Who are the weaker ones? So there are 2 main advantages of giving a test. One is we can know how much the students have understood the lesson. Right? For this we are using the facility index. Right? How much the students have found the lesson easy or difficult. Then how can we identify this? By giving them a test. Right? Then we have to analyze the items, that means analyze the questions, how the students have answered. Then we can find this. The second one is to identify capable and we can separate them. These are the clever students, these are the average ones, these are the weaker students. We can examine whether these purposes are achieved in a test by analyzing each test item. Right? We can check the above 2 conditions, advantages, by giving the students a test and analyzing each item. Item means, what do you mean by item? The question, right? So if there are 40 MCQs, we have to analyze all 40 MCQs, right? One by one. Then we can know how much the students have found the lesson easy, and we can identify the clever students from the weaker students. In this process, the facility or difficulty index as well as discrimination index should be calculated respectively. Right? So respectively means here, for the first one, to find out how much the students have found the questions easy, that means how much they have understood the lesson, we are using the facility or difficulty index. And to separate the students, or to identify the capable and incapable students, we are finding the discrimination index, right? First one, facility index. By facility index, we can find out how many, out of total candidates have found the items or the questions easy. If the questions are easy, that means they have understood the lesson well, right? So from the facility index, facility means easy, easiness. From the facility index, we can find out how many students out of the total candidates have found the items easy. There's a formula and there's an index. Index කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Now coefficient, that's a value, right? Based on that value we interpret. Likewise, in an index we can find a value and based on that we can interpret. So remember the facility index, the value of a facility or difficulty index takes from 0 to 1. Underline that. Facility index takes values from 0 to 1. It can't have minus values, right? 0 to 1. Decimals possible 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.9, 1. You can't have 1.1, right? 0 to 1. Only the plus values, positive ones. 1. If we get the index as 1, then we can say all the students have found the question easy. Question easy. We are analyzing the questions one by one, right? If once we have analyzed one question and we get the index, then we can interpret whether that particular question was easy for the students or not. If it is 1, that means all the students have understood the lesson or found the question easy. Now here facility or difficulty, but when we get that particular value, first we interpret the facility one, right? For example, 80% of students, if the index is 0.8, we can say 80% of students have found the question easy, whereas 20% of students have found the question difficult. So first we have to get the easy part, right? If we get the answer as 0.2, that means 20%, no? So we can say 20% of students have found the item easy, whereas 80% of students have found the item or the question difficult. That means they have not understood that particular part in the syllabus or the section because majority of the students have found that question difficult. Right? 0.5 means the average. 0 means if all the candidates found, if all the candidates found the item difficult, then we get 0. This also can be indicated as a percentage, as I said, right? DI, difficulty index, or FI, facility index. Both are the same. But here for discrimination index also we are using DI. So you'll have to, because at the exam they will give you the term, right, in words, difficulty or facility, discrimination. Here DI equals 0.2. That means 20%. So how would you interpret? This implies that only 20 students or 20% of students have found the question easy, whereas 80% of students have found the questions difficult. If there are 100 students, right? If 100 students, now earlier one as a percentage. Now as human beings or the students, 20 students have found the question easy, and out of 100, 80 students have found the question difficult. So the question can be considered as a difficult question. Formula for this facility index. I'll explain this, but for the time being, you have to correct here, make some corrections. Upper correct responses, not only upper, right? Upper correct responses plus middle correct responses plus lower correct responses divided by total of the sample. Next one, difficulty index. The shortened form up U plus M plus L, then write correct responses divided by total of the sample. Okay, that is facility index. We will be discussing all these things later, right? Remember, the facility index takes the value from 0 to 1. From the facility index, we can know how many students out of the total found the question easy. Now the second index, discrimination index. With the use of discrimination index, it is possible to identify or separate, right, the capable and incapable students. Discriminating, separating, right? From this index, we can find out, or we can separate the clever students from the weak students. These are clever students, these are average, these are the weaker ones, right? The value of discrimination index could range from +1 to -1, actually -1 to +1, just like the coefficient, right? -1 to +1. Facility index 0 to 1. Here you can, that means here you can have minus values as well. +1 or approximate. +1 or approximate, not minus. +1 or approximate means closer to +1. 0.9, 0.8, like that. The item is successful in separating the capable students from the incapable students. That's the way you interpret it. For example, if you get the index as discrimination index as 0.9, that means 90%. So you can say the item is 90% successful in separating the capable students from the incapable students. 0 or approximate, 0 or 0.1 minus 0.1, then the item is not successful in separating the capable students from the incapable. When you get 0 or closer to 0, you can say the item is not successful. In this, how we interpret here, 100% successful or 100% not successful, 90% successful in separating, 90% not successful, like that. You can't say 90, yeah, not. 0, if you 0, or you just say not successful, right? Not 90% not. What is that? Minus value, right? If you get a minus value, because the index ranges from -1 to +1. So if you get a minus value, then you can say there is a mistake in the item. That means there is a mistake in the question. Something is wrong in the question. So you'll have to amend or correct the question. Why? Right. There's the formula for this one is, then you can understand the small paragraph here. Discrimination index equals upper correct responses minus lower correct responses divided by total of upper responses. Total of upper responses. Right, then we'll come to this paragraph later. Right, so discrimination index helps us to discriminate or separate the capable students from the weaker students, and it ranges from -1 to +1. If it is closer to +1, it says the degree of success in separating this. If it's closer to 0 or 0, then the item is not successful in separating. If it is a minus value, then you can say something is wrong in the question, that you'll have to amend it. Next subtopic, steps to be followed when analyzing MCQs. So how can we analyze the items? Earlier we discussed about two indices, right? Facility index and the discrimination index. So how can we analyze these items? First, number one, actually here we are using MCQs, right, with choices. Now if we take a test, and if we assume that there are 40 MCQs, I have taken, in this example, I have taken a test with 40 MCQs, right? And the number of candidates 200, right? So there are 40 MCQs in this test. Now first step is mark the answers in the multiple choice test, and write down the total marks of each answer script. So first you give a test, 40 MCQs, and mark each paper and put the total on the top, right, out of 40. What's the out of 40? 40, 39, 25, 8, like that you can put the total on the top of the paper. Then, second step, arrange all answer scripts according to the marks, right? You have to arrange them according to the marks, from the highest to the lowest, right? From the highest to the lowest. So, on the table, at the bottom, you have to keep the lowest mark, and then you will have to pile up, right? Then the answer scripts with the higher marks will be on the top, and the ones with the lower marks will be at the bottom, right? So what's the first step? You give the students 40 MCQs, 40 or 30, or it depends. So here 40. Then you mark each paper and put the total on the top of the paper. Then you pile, prepare a pile. How you arrange the papers? How do you arrange the papers? The lowest marks at the bottom of the pile and the highest marks at the top of the pile. Number 3. Divide the number of answer scripts into 3 parts in such a way that, so the third point is, you have to divide this set papers into 3 bundles, 3 parts, not equal parts, right? In such a way that 27% of the answer scripts with the higher marks in the upper part. Now you have a pile now, bottom to top, right? Lowest to the highest. From the highest section, you take 27%. If there are 100 answer scripts, then you have to select, you count and select 27 papers from top to bottom. 1, 2, 3 කියලා ඔහම 27ක් උඩම තියෙන 27 ගන්නවා. 27% if there are 100 candidates. If there are 200 candidates, 200 into 27%, that means 54. Right? You have to select the top 54 papers. උඩම තියෙන papers 54ක් ගන්නවා. If there are 20 candidates, then you keep them aside. Then you have the rest of the bundle, right? From that you select 46% of the answer scripts. right? If the total is 100, you then count the next 46, right? If there are 200 students, 46 multiplied by 2, 92. 92 answer scripts you'll have to select, right? 46. Then count and keep them in the middle. Then the last will be the 27, right? 27. Now if we add those 27 plus 46 plus 27, it's 100. All right, remember the percentages: 27, 46, 27. On the top, the clever ones answer scripts. In the middle, the majority, average students. The lower part, 27%, weaker students, right? So you have 3 bundles now, smaller ones. Number 4, prepare a table for each question as shown in the example below and find out the indices. Then you will have to prepare the tables. How many tables? 40 tables. If there are 40 MCQs, 40 tables as given below, right? If there are 30 MCQs, then 30 such tables you will have to prepare. Now we will see how we are going to prepare these. So far we have 3 bundles, right? 3 sets of answer scripts. Activity. Given below is a table which shows the analysis of an item of a test. This is based on one particular question. For example, I have included, what is the longest river in Sri Lanka? This is the common example. Just for this one, we'll take it. Kalu. What is the longest river in Sri Lanka? That's the question, right? The step. 1, there are 4 choices. Remember those terms? There are 4 choices. What are those 4 choices? 1, Kalu, 2, Mahavali, 3, Walave, 4, Namunu. Right. Then 1 choice is correct. That's the key. Right? You can see under the table, they have put a star mark and written correct choice is 2. Right? In the table also, now we'll see, look at the table. The table on the top, we can find choices, horizontally choices. How many choices are there here? Kalu, Mahavali, like that? 4. So you put 1, 2, 3, 4. And to the correct answer, put a star mark. Actually, you don't have to do this. At the exam, they will give you this table and ask you to calculate the facility index and discrimination index, and then to interpret the results, right? To analyze the items. But if you want to analyze, this is the way. Right? Put a star mark near the correct one. Here, according to this example, Mahavali, right? Number 2. Down on the vertically, top to bottom, you have to put the papers, right? 54 by 9. Now we'll go to the example. Given below is a table which shows the analysis of an item of a test. The responses of 200 students are given in it. So there is the answers of 200 students for this question is analyzed as follows, right? 200. So now in the first category, the top category, what is the percentage? 27%. So if now, since the total is 200, I have done the calculation nearby. So 54 papers of the clever students. Now here sometimes they will give you clever students or upper scores or above average, right? Then the middle one, average level, average students, middle scores, like that. Bottom one, lower scores, below the average, weaker students. Likewise, they will give. The idea is the same. Then you can see some values are in the body of the table. How do you get these? That means now we take the first 54 papers, right? Then we check how many students have answered the first choice, that means Kalu, as the correct answer. You go through the first 54 papers and see how many have marked Kalu as the answer. According to this, 13 students have marked Kalu. Then you go through, once again you go through to find out how many students have marked Mahavali as the answer. Then the correct the finding is 27 students have marked Mahavali as the answer. Once again you go through and find out how many students have marked Valave as the answer. 11 students. Then once again you go through the first set. First set means the top set. The top set means the clever students set papers, right? Then the fourth choice, Namunu, only one child has answered. The longest river is Namunu in the among the clever students. Then you find a section called omitted. That means from those among those 54 papers, 2 students have not answered the question. They have left the answers blank. Right? They have not marked any answer. That's why omitted. So when you count all these things horizontally, the total is 54. Right. Likewise, you take the middle set of papers then, average students' papers. Once again, you go through how many students have marked Khalu as the correct answer in that set. Likewise, you go through all the choices and do. Then the weaker students' papers and check. Once you have done it, you get the totals down here, right? First choice, out of 200 students, 40 students have marked Kalu as the answer, correct answer. Then 109 students have marked Mahavali as the correct answer out of 200. Likewise, you can get the totals. You can see the vertical total tallies with the horizontal total. They give all these things to you at the exam, but when you analyze by yourself, you have to do like this. Right? That's the table. Now we are going to the problem. Find the difficulty index. Give me another name for difficulty index. Facility index. Find the difficulty of facility index of the item and interpret. So what's the formula here? This they don't give, you have to remember, right? Difficulty of facility index equals upper correct responses. Now what is this upper correct responses? Upper. Go to the first level. Clever students one. 13, 27, 11, 1, 2, 54. That's the upper responses. But you have to take the upper correct responses. So what is the value you have to take? 27. Right? So 27 plus middle correct responses. Go to the middle row. 17, 53, 16, 33 like that. Then what's the correct response there? How many? 53. Then plus lower correct responses. Are weak lamai kidenek Mahavali hari uttareta thoralada. 29 of them have selected Mahavali as the correct answer. Then what's the total? 27. Down below you can see the calculation, right? 27 plus 53 plus 29 divided by the total sample. Here 200. right? So the total is 109 divided by 200. That is that equals to 0.55. So the facility index is 0.55. Now the interpretation is there. Before that, we'll see what you have to do when you are asked to find the facility index. Get the total of the correct answers. අර තද පාටින් දාලා තියෙනවා 109 රවුම් කරලා. ඒක බෙදන්න total එකෙන් 200. That's all you have to remember. Right? That's why it's a first paper question. Right, the answer is this 0.55. Now we'll interpret the answer 0.55. If this is indicated as a percentage, just as the correlation coefficient, convert this into a percentage. 0.55 means 55%. It would be 55%. Now you go to the interpretation, right? This means that 55% of students found the question easy and 45% of students have found the question difficult. That's you interpret it like that, right? First convert the index into a percentage and take that easy part, facility part. Interpret 55% of students have found the question easy, whereas 45. How did you get 45? 55. You have to subtract 55 from 100, right? 45 there. Whereas 45 students found the question difficult. Then give as a numerical value. Out of 200, no? So out of 100, it's 55. Out of 200, it's 110. So we can say out of 200 students, 110 students have found the item easy, whereas 90 students have found the item difficult. So we can say that this item or this question had been an average one, right? Not too easy, not too difficult. That's the way you find. So the students have understood the lesson at an average level. Right? Now do you know how to interpret it? Convert the value into a percentage and take that facility part first. Directly connect with the index into the facility part. And then get the total, the physical number also. Then interpret. Second one. Now we'll go to the second one. Find the discrimination index of the item and interpret. Now what's the formula for the discrimination index? DI equals upper correct responses minus lower correct responses divided by the total of upper responses. You have to remember these two formulae, right? So at the exam they don't give these. So you have to remember. Upper correct responses minus lower correct responses divided by the total of the upper responses. Now look at the table down there, the same table, right? Upper correct responses. Now go to the correct responses. That means number 2. So upper correct responses, that is 27. 27 minus lower correct responses, weaker students' responses. It's 29. I have boxed both of them in red. 29. So 27 minus 29 divided by total of the upper responses. So go to the upper responses, all the responses, right? Not the correct responses. Total of the upper responses. So 13 plus 27 plus 11 plus 1 plus 2 is 54. So 27 minus 29 is minus 2 divided by 54. The answer is minus 0.04. Okay, so the discrimination index takes a minus value here. Now we'll interpret the results. Since the discrimination index takes a minus value, it indicates that there is something wrong in the item, that there is something wrong in the question. Therefore, the test item should be amended. That part is important. If you get a minus value as the discrimination index, it shows that there's something wrong in the question. So the whole question should be amended, corrected, right? Now in the note number 2, discrimination index, I told you that I would come to that part later. Now this is that part. If the discrimination index is +1 or approximate, we can say the item is successful in separating capable students from incapable ones. 0 or approximate, the item is not successful in separating the students. If the item, the index takes a minus value, that means there is a mistake in the item. Why? How can you say that? Upper correct responses minus lower correct responses. Correct responses can one hari uttar. Right? Now the clever students have 27 of the clever students have marked the correct answer, only 27, right? Then from the weaker students, lower scores means the weaker students, 29 of them have marked the correct answer correctly. So is it possible? The clever students, only 27 have marked, selected the second choice as the correct answer. But the weaker students, 29 of them have selected the second choice as the correct answer. So something is confusing, right? Correct answer in the lower. It says correct answer in the lower or weaker section exceeds the number of students who got the correct answer in the upper or clever section. Most probably due to confusion in the distractors or the choices. Something is wrong there, right? If you can't see, this is the correct way. Upper limit minus lower limit, a minus value. This means the number of students who got the correct answer in the lower, within brackets, weaker section exceeds, EXCEEDS, exceeds the number of students who got the correct answer in the upper or clever section. Most probably due to confusion in the distractors or choices. Okay. The last subtopic of this section, analysis of distractors. Actually, it should be analysis of choices, right? Now, in an MCQ, you find 4 choices. The correct choice is the key, and the other 3, the other choices are distractors, right? So we are going to analyze the distractors as well as the key also. The analysis is done in not two methods, right? 5, right? First one, regarding the correct choice. Now look at the table given below, the same example, right? Now take the correct choice regarding the correct choice. What's the correct choice? Number 2, right? The majority of the upper section. The majority of upper section means the clever students. The majority of clever students should have selected the correct answer. whereas only a few of the lower section means weaker students, should have selected the correct answer. In this case, 27 from the clever students have selected the correct answer, but 29 from the weaker students, both are equal to 27%, 27%. But 29 have selected the correct choice as the correct answer. So it is not possible. Something is wrong here. That's the way you will have to analyze. You have to say it is not possible. The item should be amended. Something is wrong with the choice there. Now we'll go to the wrong choices or the distractors. That is the choice number 1, 3, 4. Regarding the wrong choices, only a few students in the upper section should be dispersed among the wrong choices. Only a few students in the clever section. Now we'll study the clever section, that row 13, 20, 13, 11, 1. Right? This says only a few students in the clever section should be dispersed among the wrong choices. Right? Because the clever students won't select the wrong answers. No? But here you can see 13 students have selected the first choice, 11 students have selected the third choice. So there are some things wrong there also. A majority of the students in the lower section should be dispersed among the wrong choices. If we take the lower section, weaker students one, the majority of students in the weaker section should be dispersed among the wrong choices. 10 students have selected one, 8 students have selected the third one, 2 students have selected the fourth one. So that fourth choice is not appropriate. Even the clever students or the weaker students have selected that choice. Right? So we have to, that means it's something out of the possibilities. Then we have to omit that choice. We have to change here because according to that example, Namunu was given as the, actually it should be Namunu Kula, but I put as Namunu, and they know that it's a mountain, not a river. Note, a number of capable students who selected the wrong choice should not exceed the number of incapable students who selected the wrong choice. That we explained, no? Number of capable students, clever students who selected the wrong choice should not exceed the number of incapable students who selected the wrong choice. Now here, wrong choices. Regarding the wrong choices, 13 and 27 from the clever students have selected. But if we take the weaker students, only 10 and 29 there, of course, have selected this one. So the first one is also a problem. There's a problem in the first choice. Number 3. The students should be dispersed equally among the wrong choices. Now go to the totals down there. It's the first choice out of 240 students have selected that. Second one, 109. Third choice, 35 of them. And the fourth choice, only 6. Now this says the students should be dispersed equally among the wrong choices. Right? So 40, 35, 6. Not equally dispersed. That fourth choice is not good. Right? 40, 35 somewhat okay, but the fourth one should be amended. The fourth choice should be amended. Amended means corrected. We have to remove that maybe and put something else. Mahavali, Kalu, Valave, Kalari. Next, number 5. No, if none, this is none, right? N-O-N-E, none. Non-fat milk, N-O-N. If none or fewer number of students have selected a particular distractor, then it should be amended. If nobody or a few students have selected a particular distractor, now look at the fourth distractor. A few students have selected that particular distractor. So it should be amended. Number 5. If a larger number of students have refrained from answering the question at all, right? Now omitted means nobody has answered. From the clever students, 2. From the average group, 3 students have not answered that question. And from the weaker ones, 5. Altogether, 10 students have refrained from answering the question. But if a larger number of students, only 10 out of 200, right, have refrained from answering the question at all, then that question, the whole question should be amended. Not only the distractors, the whole. Here it's only 10 students now, so you don't have to amend the whole question. Only the fourth distractor and maybe the first distractor we have to amend. Alright, that's the way you have to analyze the distractors. You won't get questions, sometimes you get such questions in the first paper also, but if mostly in the second paper. Go through the past papers, you can see what I say. Right, okay. Now look at this one. This is an exercise, activity you have to do. I have given you a table and here the correct answer is the third choice. That's the key, right? As you can see, the total number of students is 100. What you have to do is first calculate the facility index. It's easy, no? What's the correct choice? That is number 3. So what's the total there? 60. 60 should be divided by 100. That is the facility index. Right? The answer is 0.6. First find the facility index and write the interpretation. The facility index is 0.6. So how would you interpret that? First step, convert it into a percentage. 0.6 means 60%. Then interpret. Facility, no, go to that part. You say around 60% of students have found the item easy, whereas 40% of students have found the item difficult. In other words, out of 100 students, 60 of them have found the question easy, whereas 40 students have found the question difficult. So the item, the test item or the question is not too easy nor too difficult. It's at average level. That's the interpretation. Now similarly you find the discrimination index. How can you find that? Always go to the correct choice, right? There you will have to deduct, that means upper correct responses minus lower correct responses. Upper correct responses here, it's 23 minus 4, that is 19, divided by total of the upper responses, that is 27. So 19 divided by 27, it is 0.7. You do the calculations, right? Check whether my answers are correct. How can we interpret this one now? Convert this 0.7, so 70%. Then write the interpretation. Now it's a plus value. you can interpret. The item is 70% successful in discriminating clever students from weaker students. That's the way, right? The item, the question is 70% successful in separating clever students from weak students. So that item is okay, right? A good item. Then you can keep it. Then go through the analysis, the criteria up there, and analyze this item, this question. Right, I'll just explain. Regarding the correct choice, what's the statement there? The majority of upper section should have selected the correct answer. Majority of upper section should have selected the correct answer. What is that? 23, right? 23 students out of 27 have selected the correct answer. That part is okay. Whereas only a few of the lower section should have selected the correct answer. Lower section, go to the lower section, weaker students. 4 students out of 27 have selected the correct answer as the third choice as the correct answer. So that condition is okay for this example. Regarding the wrong choices, only a few students in the upper section should be dispersed among the wrong choices. Now go to the wrong choices, that is number 1, 2, 4. Only a few students should be dispersed in the wrong choices among the clever students. It's correct now. 1 child, 2 and 1. So only that part is also correct. Second one, a majority of the students in the lower section. Now go to the weaker section, lower one. 7, 9, 6. Now we are talking about the wrong answers, right? Distractors. So what is the condition there? A majority of the students in the lower section should be dispersed among the wrong choices. Lamai godak indoni wrong choices. Weak lamai. Hari 7, 9, 6 out of 20. So that is also okay. Note, a number of capable students who selected the wrong choice. Number of capable students who selected the wrong choice. Now we'll take number of capable students who selected the first wrong choice. It's 1. Should not exceed the number of incapable students who selected the wrong choice. If we consider the first one, lowest, weaker students, right? 7 of them have selected. So 1 does not exceed 7. So that condition is fine. 2 does not exceed 9. Right? 9 is larger than 2. So that is also correct. 1 does not exceed 6. So that condition is correct for all 3 distractors. Third one, the students should be dispersed equally among the wrong choices. Now go to the totals. Wrong choices, 13, 15, 10. More or less they are the same, right? The students should be dispersed equally among the wrong choices. So 13, 15, 10, it's okay. 13, 10, not a big gap. Number 4. If none or a fewer number of students have selected a particular distractor, then it should be amended. If has anybody, selected or nobody has selected a particular distractor? No. 13, 15, 10. So no distractor is different. Odd. Last one. If a larger number of students have refrained from answering the question at all, now go to the omitted section, only 2 students, right? Then that question should be amended. So only 2 students have not answered the question out of 100. So we don't have to amend the whole question. So in conclusion, this item is a good one. That means this question is a good question. It can separate the clever students from the weaker students. 70% successful in separating them. That's the discrimination index. Facility index, that means it is 6. That means the average, the item is at average level. Not too easy, not too difficult. Alright, that's the end of the whole section. You have to find the facility index, discrimination index, interpret them, and do the analysis, right? Take each sentence, each criterion, and analyze by referring to the data in the table. All right.